Recently had a viewer over on Full 30 that was having some trouble field stripping their Smith Wesson 422 pistol. Today we're going to do a quick bench video showing you how to get that done, so stick around. Alright crew, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to do a quick field strip of the Smith & Wesson Model 422. Now this is the field model, however this procedure also works for the target model, and I'm going to explain a few things you need to look for along the way. The only tool you're going to need for this is a very expensive one. It's going to be a spent piece of 22 long rifle brass, so make sure you have one of those on hand. I know they're very costly, and I apologize beforehand. Before we get started, I want to remind you, though, wherever you might be watching, to click that subscribe button. And if you're over on the YouTube side of things, make sure you go ahead and click that notification bell as well. So let's get started here, and first thing we're going to do is remove the magazine and make sure everything is clear. So we'll go through those motions really quickly here, and we're good. Now, the reason that we're removing the magazine obviously is a safety reason, but there's also another reason that I will go over here shortly when we get to it. Now, take and lock your slide back, and if you look down in there, you'll see the guide rod, and then of course behind that is your guide rod spring. You want to take that piece of brass, kind of center it up on that guide rod like so, with the head of the brass toward the slide. Drop your slide and just kind of let it rest on the frame here. What that's going to do is that's going to remove tension, and you can see our wedge that holds our guide rod in place is loose. We can just pull that out and set that to the side. Now, there's a reason we're using a piece of brass. You got to be very careful. If you look down in here, I've seen quite a few guide rods that were boogered up. People had used screwdrivers to alleviate the tension and all sorts of things. So then that creates a situation where a lot of times it'll go back together fine, but then the next time you go to pull it apart, it's going to be a pain in the rear, and you may end up further damaging your guide rod and having to actually replace that. So you always want to push from this front side and relieve the tension that way if you can. Now, you're going to want to pull this slide backwards slowly, and as you do that, realize that the guide rod and spring and all, it's under pressure. So get a hold of that brass, kind of have your fingers in the way, pull that slide back just a little bit, and move your brass out of the way, and grab that guide rod and spring and kind of let it ease itself out at first, and then continue to pull it out. At that point, you can finish removing your slide, and there you are, your field strip, and ready for cleaning. Now, the magazine that I spoke about earlier being out, this model has a magazine disconnect, which means it will not fire without the magazine in place, which is a great thing because you don't want this hammer coming forward and damaging anything. Now, for good measure, you could always throw the safety on or something like that, I suppose, but in our situation here, the magazine disconnect is going to do the job. There's no way we can drop that hammer accidentally. Now, going back together, same process. You're going to get your slide on, get your slide started here like so, and we're going to take our spring assembly and guide rod. Always want to inspect this. Like I said earlier, you've got this guide rod could get boogered up if people have tried to disassemble it using screwdrivers and other weird methods. Make sure nothing's bent, nothing's boogered up before you go back in with it. Just feed that dude back in. Obviously, the spring goes in first here. Now, once you get the guide rod and spring started up in there, go ahead and push it back in there by hand as far as you can. Get your brass ready. What we're going to do is, once we get this pushed back up in here, we're going to slip this brass over the guide rod like so. and allow it to hold it in place that direction. Now go ahead at that point and ease your slide forward, and as you can see here, we're in the right spot, ready to put our little keeper key back in. It's only going to go in one way. Drop that dude in there. At that point, you can lock your slide back, and you're good to go. Remember, crew, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, leave them down below. I want to thank you for watching. Until next time, don't forget to chain fire freedom.